I'm Emma, 26 years old. And last Thursday, I was standing in Henderson Contemporary Gallery, admiring a painting I'd saved 8 months to buy. After years of struggling as a freelance illustrator, I finally had something to celebrate. That's when my sister Chloe burst through the gallery doors, her face twisted with fury. Before I could explain, her voice cut through the hushed space like a blade, making every patron turn to stare. What happened next changed my entire life. Growing up with Chloe was like living in the shadow of a hurricane. She was 3 years older, more outgoing, and somehow always the star of every room she entered. While I spent weekends sketching in my bedroom or working part-time jobs since I was 15, Chloe glided through life expecting others to handle the details. And they always did. Our childhood home in Portland wasn't luxurious, but we never lacked essentials. Dad worked as an architect and Mom ran a small interior design consultancy. They weren't wealthy, but they managed to fund Chloe's endless pursuits: violin lessons, drama camp, modeling classes, and a wardrobe that seemed to refresh itself seasonally. Meanwhile, I saved my babysitting money to buy art supplies and entered every scholarship competition I could find. "Emma, be reasonable," Mom would say whenever I questioned the imbalance. "Your sister needs more guidance. You've always been so self-sufficient." Self-sufficient wasn't a choice, it was necessity. By 21, I had moved out, cobbling together rent from freelance illustration work while finishing my art degree through night classes. Chloe remained home until 26, when our parents gifted her a down payment on a trendy loft as a career launch present after she completed her third different bachelor's degree. Last month marked a turning point in my career. My illustration series for a major children's book publisher had gone viral on social media, leading to 3 new contracts and my first real financial breathing room. My agent, Marcus, had just negotiated a deal for my artwork to be featured in a gallery show. For the first time, I could afford something I'd always dreamed of: original art for my own walls. The Sunday before the gallery incident, we gathered at my parents' house for their monthly family brunch. I'd been excited to share news about my upcoming exhibition, but as usual, Chloe commanded attention from the moment she arrived. "Everyone, I have incredible news," she announced, dramatically placing a leather portfolio on the dining table. "I just signed with Meridian Talent Agency. They're booking me for a commercial campaign next month." Mom and Dad rushed to congratulate her while I waited for my turn to speak. When I finally mentioned my gallery show and book contracts, Mom nodded absently. "That's wonderful, honey. Now, Chloe, tell us more about this commercial." That evening, I decided the painting wasn't an indulgence. It was validation. A reminder that my work had value, even if my family didn't always recognize it. Henderson Contemporary wasn't the most prestigious gallery in Portland, but it was certainly the most intimidating I'd ever entered. Exposed brick walls displayed carefully curated pieces under perfect lighting, and the staff wore black clothing that screamed sophistication. I'd walked past this place countless times, but never dared enter. That Thursday morning, I took a personal day and dressed carefully in my one good navy dress. I styled my shoulder-length auburn hair, applied makeup with unusual precision, and even wore heels instead of my usual paint-stained sneakers. I wanted to look like someone who belonged in a gallery buying original art. Pushing open the heavy glass door, I was greeted by ambient music and the subtle scent of expensive candles. A tall woman with silver-streaked black hair approached with a professional smile. "Welcome to Henderson Contemporary.
I'm Vivian.
How may I assist you today?" My mouth went dry. "I'm interested in purchasing a piece. Something for my apartment. It's my first original art purchase." Instead of the condescension I feared, Vivian's eyes brightened. "Your first original piece. How exciting. What draws you? Abstract, figurative photography?" She led me through the gallery, explaining techniques and artists as we moved between pieces. I was beginning to relax when the door chimed, announcing another visitor. I wouldn't have turned around except for the familiar voice that shattered the refined atmosphere like breaking glass. "Oh my God, Emma. What are you doing here?" Chloe stood in the doorway, flanked by 2 women I recognized as her modeling friends, Sienna and Madison. My sister wore a white blazer over designer jeans, her highlighted blonde hair cascading in perfect waves. Her presence immediately made me feel underdressed and out of place. "Are you lost?" she continued, her voice carrying through the quiet space. "This place is a bit upscale for you, isn't it?" Vivian's eyebrows rose slightly, but her professional demeanor remained intact. "Your sister is considering several pieces from our emerging artists collection. Would you care to join us?" Chloe laughed, striding toward us with her friends trailing behind. "Yes, unfortunately, we're related, though you'd never guess from our career choices." The comparison hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Chloe had always been the glamorous one, tall, blonde, conventionally beautiful in a way that opened doors I had to push against. "I didn't know you were gallery shopping today," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Are you looking for something specific?" "Just browsing," Chloe shrugged, examining a nearby sculpture. "I'm meeting a photographer here about a potential collaboration." "What are you buying? Posters?" Vivian cleared her throat diplomatically. "Actually, your sister has excellent taste. She's been drawn to this Sarah Chen original. It's a mixed media piece exploring themes of transformation." Chloe's eyes narrowed as she examined the painting I'd been admiring. "Sarah Chen? Never heard of her. What's the price point on something like this?" "This piece is priced at $4,200, Vivian replied calmly. Chloe's jaw dropped. $4,000? Emma, are you insane? That's like 3 months of rent for most people. Heat rose to my face. "I got several new contracts. I can afford it." "Contracts for what?" "Drawing pictures in children's books." Chloe's tone dripped with disdain. "That's hardly a sustainable career path." Sienna and Madison exchanged glances while examining other pieces, clearly uncomfortable with the public confrontation. I noticed other gallery visitors beginning to stare. "It's illustration work for major publishers," I corrected, though I knew the distinction meant nothing to Chloe. "And the contracts are quite substantial." "Well, good for you," Chloe replied sarcastically, moving closer to the painting. "Though if you had any financial sense, you'd be saving that money instead of wasting it on overpriced decoration. But that's always been your problem, impractical choices." Years of therapy had taught me not to engage with Chloe's provocations, but her words still stung. Vivian, sensing the tension, attempted to redirect. "This piece would complement your space beautifully," she said, gesturing to the painting. "Sarah Chen's work has been gaining significant recognition. It's an investment as much as art." "Investment," Chloe scoffed. "Emma, you're really going to spend $4,000 on some unknown artist's work right after I announce my modeling contract? This is so typical of you." The accusation blindsided me. "What does my buying art have to do with your modeling contract? You can't stand that I'm finally getting recognition. You've always been jealous that I have the looks for this industry while you're stuck drawing cartoon characters." Chloe's voice rose, causing a security guard near the entrance to glance our way. The accusation was so divorced from reality, it momentarily stunned me. "I'm not jealous of you, Chloe. I'm happy with my career." I kept my voice low, conscious of our growing audience. "Then why are you suddenly buying expensive art right after my announcement? It's obvious you're trying to compete with me." "Ladies," Vivian interjected, "perhaps we could." "I'm not competing with anyone," I interrupted, my patience finally snapping. "I'm buying something I love with money I earned from work I'm passionate about. Not everything revolves around you." Chloe's face flushed. "How dare you speak to me like that? You're just bitter because you'll never have what I have: beauty, opportunities, a real career in entertainment." The words hit like physical blows. In that moment, surrounded by strangers in an upscale gallery, I felt every insecurity I'd ever harbored about my appearance and career choices. "I don't want what you have," I said quietly, surprised by the truth of it. "I want what I'm building for myself." "What you're building?" Chloe laughed harshly. "Emma, you draw pictures for a living. Children's books don't make you an artist." Before I could respond, a deep, authoritative voice cut through the tension from behind me. "Actually, children's book illustration is one of the most demanding and respected forms of commercial art." The man stepped forward, positioning himself slightly protectively near me. I said children's book illustration requires exceptional skill. The artist must convey complex emotions and narratives through visual storytelling while appealing to both children and adults. It's far more challenging than most people realize. Confusion rippled through the gallery. Vivian looked between us with wide eyes. Even the security guard paused his approach, uncertainty written across his face. "And you are?" Chloe demanded, though her tone had lost much of its venom. "Someone who recognizes talent when I see it," the man replied evenly. "Your behavior toward this artist is completely inappropriate." A flicker of uncertainty crossed Chloe's face as she took in the man's expensive watch, the quality of his suit, and his commanding presence. For once, she seemed at a loss for words. The man turned slightly toward me, and I caught a flash of warmth in his eyes that contrasted with the steel in his voice when addressing Chloe. "I apologize for interrupting," he said, his tone gentler. "But I couldn't stand by and watch someone disparage an artist's work and choices." "I'm not disparaging anything," Chloe protested, trying to recover her composure. "I'm just trying to help my sister make smart financial decisions." "By publicly humiliating her in a gallery?" The man's voice remained calm, but carried an edge that made Chloe step back. "That's not helpful. That's cruel." I finally found my voice. "Thank you for intervening, but you didn't need to." "Actually, I did," he interrupted gently. "Art and artists deserve respect, especially from family members who should be supportive." Chloe's shock was giving way to indignation. "Do you even know who I am? I'm about to be featured in a major commercial campaign." "That's irrelevant to how you treat your sister," the man replied dismissively. "Success in one field doesn't give you license to belittle someone else's achievements." "And who exactly are you to lecture me?" Chloe demanded. "Daniel Morrison," he replied, extending his hand to me rather than her. "I own Morrison Technologies, and I happen to be a significant collector of contemporary art." The name registered instantly. Daniel Morrison was the founder of Morrison Technologies, a company that had revolutionized mobile app security. His net worth was estimated in the billions, and his art collection was occasionally featured in design magazines. "You're Daniel Morrison," I said, accepting his handshake with surprise. Chloe's attitude shifted dramatically, hostility morphing into sickening sweetness. "Oh my goodness, what an honor. I'm such an admirer of your work in technology." Daniel barely glanced at her. "Are you all right?" he asked me again. That seemed like a painful conversation to endure publicly. I nodded, still processing his unexpected support.
"Ivy fine."
"Thank you for standing up for artists in general." "It's not just about artists," Daniel said seriously. "It's about basic human decency. No one should be made to feel small for pursuing their passions or celebrating their successes." Vivian, who had been watching this exchange with fascination, stepped forward. "Mr. Morrison, what a pleasant surprise. Are you here to view the new installations?" "Actually, I came to see Sarah Chen's latest work," Daniel revealed. "Her mixed media pieces have been getting attention in the art community. I'm considering a purchase for my collection." My heart skipped. The same artist whose work I'd been admiring. "Your sister has impeccable taste," Daniel told Chloe, though his tone remained cool. "Sarah Chen is incredibly talented. This piece," he gestured to the painting I'd been considering, "explores themes of personal transformation through layered imagery and color progression. It's sophisticated work." Chloe seemed to deflate slightly. I didn't realize it was so respected." "Most people don't research before forming opinions," Daniel replied curtly. Then, turning back to me, "What drew you to this particular piece?" I looked at the painting again, seeing it through new eyes after his analysis. "The layers," I said honestly. "The way different elements emerge depending on where you stand and how the light hits it. It reminds me of personal growth, how we become more complex and interesting when we're willing to change." Daniel's expression brightened with genuine interest.
"Exactly.
That's precisely what makes Chen's work so compelling. She creates visual metaphors for emotional experiences." Chloe stood silently, perhaps for the first time in her life having nothing to contribute to a conversation. "Are you planning to purchase it?" Daniel asked me. I was yes. It would be my first original art purchase. Your first original piece. That's a significant milestone, Daniel said warmly. Every collector remembers their first acquisition. Vivian, sensing an opportunity to complete both transactions, stepped forward diplomatically. Shall I prepare the paperwork for both pieces? Mr. Morrison, were you interested in the larger chin work in the back gallery? I'd like to see it, yes. But first, Daniel turned back to me. Would you join me for coffee after you complete your purchase? I'd be interested to hear more about your illustration work. I hesitated, unsure what to make of this surreal turn of events. Yes, that would be nice. Chloe finally found her voice. Emma, maybe we should all. Actually, Daniel interrupted smoothly, I think you've contributed enough to this conversation. Perhaps you should continue with your browsing. The dismissal was polite, but unmistakable. Chloe's face flushed, but faced with Daniel's wealth and status, she couldn't summon her usual aggression. Fine, she said stiffly. Emma, we'll talk later. She stalked away with Sienna and Madison trailing behind, their exit considerably less dramatic than their entrance. After they left, the gallery returned to its previous calm. Vivian efficiently processed my purchase, while Daniel examined Sarah Chen's other works. As I signed the credit card slip with slightly shaking hands, I still couldn't quite believe what had transpired. Ready for that coffee? Daniel appeared beside me as Vivian handed me the carefully wrapped painting. More than ready, I admitted. Daniel suggested a small cafe around the corner, away from the main street bustle. It was an elegant space with exposed brick walls and locally sourced coffee, the kind of place I'd always admired from outside but never entered. I come here when I need to think, Daniel explained as we settled into a quiet corner booth. The atmosphere is conducive to real conversation. Once we had our drinks, a courte-du for him, a lavender latte for me, Daniel leaned forward with an apologetic expression. I need to explain my intervention back there. I wasn't trying to intrude on family business, but what I witnessed wasn't a family disagreement. It was verbal abuse. It's complicated, I said, wrapping my hands around the warm mug. Chloe and I have always had a competitive relationship. Competition implies equal footing, Daniel replied gently. What I saw was one person systematically undermining another's confidence and achievements. That's not competition, that's bullying. The word stung because it was accurate. She's not usually quite so public about it. Family dynamics can be the most damaging because they're hardest to recognize and escape, Daniel said. I speak from experience. Something in his tone made me curious. You've dealt with similar situations? Daniel nodded slowly. My older brother spent years trying to convince me that my interest in technology was antisocial and unmarketable. He believed the only valuable careers were traditional ones: law, medicine, finance. When Morrison Technologies succeeded, he claimed it was luck rather than skill. Did your relationship improve? I asked. Eventually. It required boundaries, distance, and his own personal growth. The dynamic didn't change until I stopped seeking his approval and he stopped feeling threatened by my success. The parallel was uncomfortably accurate. How did you know to step in today? Because I recognized the pattern, Daniel said simply. And because what your sister said about children's book illustration was ignorant and dismissive. I happen to know it's an incredibly competitive and skilled field. You know about children's book illustration? Daniel smiled. Morrison Technologies has an education division. We develop apps for early childhood learning, often working with illustrators. I've seen the artistic skill and storytelling ability required. It's remarkable work. The conversation flowed easily from there. Daniel asked thoughtful questions about my creative process, my recent contracts, and my artistic influences. Unlike most people, he seemed genuinely interested in understanding the technical and business aspects of my career. The gallery mentioned you have an exhibition coming up, he said as we finished our coffee. Yes, next month. It's my first solo show, illustrations for my latest book series along with some personal work. I'd like to attend, if you don't mind. I enjoy supporting emerging artists, and your work sounds fascinating. My heart raced at the prospect. I'd be honored. Daniel glanced at his phone and frowned slightly. I have a board meeting Meeting in 20 minutes, but I've enjoyed our conversation immensely. He hesitated, then asked, what you said about illustration requiring complex storytelling. Do you have experience with digital media integration?
Some, yes.
Most publishers want multimedia packages now, print, digital, sometimes animated elements for apps or websites. Daniel's eyes lit with interest. Morrison Technologies is launching a new educational app series next quarter. We need someone who understands both traditional illustration and digital adaptation. Would you be interested in discussing a freelance opportunity? I struggled to keep my voice professional rather than ecstatic. I'd definitely be interested in learning more. Daniel pulled out a business card. Email me your portfolio when you have a chance. No pressure, just an opportunity to explore. As we stood to leave, Daniel paused. One more thing. Don't let your sister's reaction diminish what you accomplished today. That painting represents your hard work and artistic growth. Celebrate it. I nodded, touched by his understanding. Thank you for everything. The intervention, the conversation, the potential opportunity. Thank you for the reminder that passion and talent matter more than others' approval, Daniel replied. I look forward to seeing your work. Walking back to my car, I felt strangely light despite the morning's drama. The encounter with Chloe had been painful, but Daniel's unexpected mentorship had shifted something in my perspective. For perhaps the first time, I'd been defended by someone who valued my work without knowing my history or family dynamics. My phone buzzed with incoming messages as I placed my wrapped painting carefully in the back seat. 2 texts from Chloe, 1 from my mother, and several missed calls. I silenced the phone without reading them. Whatever family storm was brewing could wait until I was ready to face it. That evening, I hung Sarah Chen's painting in my living room, where the late afternoon light brought out the subtle color transitions Daniel had described. Under the changing light, new details emerged, tiny brushstrokes that suggested movement, color choices that created emotional depth. My phone had accumulated 15 text messages and 6 missed calls by the time I was ready to address them. I scrolled through the messages while curled on my couch with tea. Chloe's texts escalated from angry, "How dare you embarrass me in front of my friends?" to manipulative, "Mom is upset about our public scene," to fake conciliatory, "I was just trying to help you make smart choices." My parents' messages were predictably one-sided, demanding I call immediately to explain why I'd caused a scene and been rude to your sister. None of them mentioned Chloe's behavior or acknowledged that she'd been the aggressor. Instead of calling my family, I spent the evening organizing my digital portfolio. If Daniel's offer was genuine, I wanted to be prepared. I selected my strongest pieces, updated my artist statement, and crafted a professional email to the address on his business card. The response came the next morning while I was sketching at my favorite coffee shop, nearly making me spill my drink across my tablet. "Emma, thank you for sending your impressive portfolio. Our education director, Sarah Kim, would like to meet with you this Wednesday at 3 p.m. to discuss potential collaboration opportunities. Please let me know if this works with your schedule. Best regards, Daniel Morrison." It wasn't just a courtesy introduction. He was actually arranging a business meeting. I quickly responded confirming the time, then spent the rest of the morning in a haze of disbelief and excitement. That evening, I finally steeled myself to call my parents. As expected, my mother answered with immediate disapproval. "Emma Louise Parker, what happened at that gallery? Chloe said you were incredibly rude to her in front of strangers." I took a deep breath. "Mom, did Chloe tell you she publicly humiliated me about my career and financial choices in front of other customers?" A pause. "She said there was a misunderstanding about your art purchase, that you were being defensive about spending so much money." "That's not what happened," I said firmly. "I was buying a painting with money I earned from new contracts, which, by the way, no one in the family has congratulated me on. Chloe showed up, called my career worthless, and tried to shame me for making my first significant art purchase." "Well, $4,000 is quite a lot for a painting," my mother said hesitantly. "It's my money, from contracts I worked hard to get. And Chloe had no right to lecture me about financial decisions when you and Dad have funded her lifestyle for years." "That's different," My mother protested. Chloe needed more support getting established, and I didn't. The question hung in the air, uncomfortable in its implications. My mother sighed. You've always been so independent, Emma. We knew you'd figure things out. Independent wasn't a choice, Mom. It was survival. And today, someone recognized that, a stranger who understood the value of my work better than my own family. A stranger? Daniel Morrison, the founder of Morrison Technologies. He witnessed Chloe's behavior and called it inappropriate. He's also interested in my work professionally. Another pause as my mother processed this information. The billionaire? The same. And tomorrow I'm meeting with his education director about potential projects. A longer silence. Finally, that's wonderful, Emma. We are proud of you, you know. Are you? I asked gently, because it rarely feels that way. The conversation ended with my mother promising to talk to Chloe about her behavior, though I had little faith anything would change. Wednesday arrived with a mixture of anticipation and nerves. I chose a professional outfit, black slacks, a burgundy blouse, and after a moment's hesitation, small silver earrings that caught the light. Not as dramatic as my diamond-buying story counterpart, but they represented the same newfound confidence. Morrison Technologies headquarters was a stunning example of sustainable architecture, all glass and living walls with views of the Columbia River. The lobby featured rotating displays of local artists' work, immediately making me feel more comfortable. The receptionist directed me to the 15th floor, where I was greeted by Sarah Kim, a dynamic woman in her 30s with kind eyes and an infectious smile. Emma, I'm so excited to meet you. Daniel shared your portfolio with our entire creative team. Your work is exactly what we've been looking for. We spent an hour discussing the educational app project, my creative process, and potential collaboration structures. Sarah's enthusiasm was genuine, and the project scope was both challenging and exciting. We'd want to start with a small project, Sarah explained. 6 illustrated characters for our new reading comprehension app, with the possibility of expanding to full story development if the partnership works well. The compensation package she outlined was more than I typically earned in 3 months of freelance work. We value long-term creative partnerships, Sarah continued. Daniel specifically requested that we explore ongoing collaboration rather than just single projects. As the meeting concluded, Sarah walked me to the elevator. Daniel mentioned you have a gallery exhibition coming up. Our team would love to attend if you're comfortable with that. I'd be honored, I replied, still processing the scope of opportunities opening up. The elevator doors opened to reveal Daniel Morrison waiting inside. Perfect timing, he smiled. How did the meeting go? Wonderfully, I replied as Sarah waved goodbye. Sarah outlined an amazing project.
I'm glad.
I had a feeling you'd be a great fit for our education initiatives. As the elevator descended, Daniel asked, "How are things with your family after yesterday's gallery incident?" I sighed. Complicated. They expect me to apologize to Chloe for being rude, but no one's acknowledging her behavior. Daniel's expression was thoughtful. Family patterns are persistent. Change often requires one person refusing to play their assigned role. Exactly what I'm trying to do, I admitted. Though it's harder than I expected. The right choices usually are, Daniel said gently. But from what I've seen, you have the strength to maintain your boundaries. As we reached the lobby, Daniel paused. One more thing, my assistant mentioned your exhibition is at the Riverside Gallery next month. I've been a patron there for years. Would you mind if I mention your show to some other collectors I know? My heart raced at the possibility. That would be incredible. Considered done. Talent deserves recognition. Driving home, I reflected on how dramatically my life had shifted in just 2 days. A painful public confrontation had somehow opened doors I'd never imagined approaching. My phone rang as I pulled into my apartment complex. It was Chloe. After a moment's hesitation, I answered. Hello.
Emma.
Her voice was tight. We need to talk about what happened at the gallery. I took a deep breath. Yes, we do. But not if the conversation starts with you expecting me to apologize. Excuse me? Her tone sharpened. You were incredibly rude to me in front of my friends.
No, Chloe.
You were cruel to me in front of strangers. You tried to shame me for buying art with my own money and dismissed my career as worthless. I was trying to help you make practical decisions, she protested. By calling children's book illustration a waste of time? By suggesting I'm too stupid to manage my own finances. A pause. I didn't say you were stupid. You implied it. Repeatedly. And when someone who actually knows about art defended my career choice, you suddenly changed your tune. That man had no right to interfere in family business, Chloe said defensively. That man recognized inappropriate behavior when he saw it. Something our family seems incapable of doing. Another silence. When Chloe spoke again, her voice was softer. Mom said you got a job opportunity for meeting him. A freelance project opportunity, yes. From someone who values my skills instead of dismissing them. That's actually pretty impressive, Chloe admitted reluctantly. I waited for the backhanded compliment or subtle dig, but none came. The painting you bought, she continued awkwardly. It was actually kind of interesting when he explained it. It's beautiful, I replied simply. And it represents something important to me. I'm sorry, Chloe said suddenly. For what I said at the gallery. I was threatened by your success and took it out on you. That wasn't fair. The apology was more genuine than I'd expected for my sister.
Thank you for acknowledging that.
It means a lot. Maybe I could see the painting sometime? And your apartment? I've never actually visited your new place. I'd like that, I said, surprised by how much I meant it. The conversation ended on a tentative but hopeful note. Perhaps painful confrontations could lead to honest communication after all. 1 month later, I stood in the Riverside Gallery surrounded by my illustrated work, watching as visitors examined pieces I'd poured my heart into creating. My first solo exhibition had exceeded all expectations. Nearly half the pieces had sold, and I'd received commissions for 3 new projects. Daniel Morrison arrived early in the evening, accompanied by Claire and several other collectors he'd introduced me to over the previous weeks. His support had been instrumental in drawing attention to my work. Emma, this is magnificent, Claire said, examining a series of illustrations exploring themes of personal growth. The emotional depth in these characters is remarkable. Thank you, I replied, still adjusting to praise from such influential figures in the art world. Daniel approached with a thoughtful expression. This piece, he gestured to my newest work, inspired by my gallery confrontation with Chloe, captures something profound about family dynamics and personal strength. The painting showed 2 figures, one trying to diminish the other's light, while the second figure glowed brighter in response. It was my most personal work, created in the weeks following that transformative Thursday. It's about refusing to be diminished, I explained. About finding strength in moments that could break you. Powerful message, Daniel nodded. And beautifully executed. As the evening progressed, I noticed familiar faces entering the gallery. My parents arrived first, looking somewhat overwhelmed by the elegant space and well-dressed crowd. Then Chloe appeared with Trevor, her new boyfriend, both dressed appropriately for the occasion. My mother approached first, her eyes wide as she took in the professional presentation of my work. Emma, this is incredible, she said, genuine pride in her voice. I had no idea your work would be displayed so professionally. Thank you, Mom. It means a lot that you came. My father joined us, studying the illustrations with new appreciation. These are remarkable, sweetheart. The detail and emotion in each piece. I'm proud of you. The simple acknowledgement brought tears to my eyes. It wasn't an apology for years of dismissing my chosen career, but it was recognition. Chloe lingered near the entrance, uncharacteristically subdued. When she finally approached, her expression was a mixture of awe and something that might have been regret. Emma, this is really impressive, she said quietly. I never understood what you were creating. Thank you for coming, I replied, meaning it. And for bringing Trevor. I wanted him to see what my sister does, Chloe said simply. What she's accomplished. The evening continued with conversations about art, storytelling, and creative vision. Several new collectors expressed interest in future work, and a gallery in Seattle inquired about a possible exhibition there in the spring. As the crowd began to thin, Daniel approached one final time. "How does it feel?" he asked. "Your first major exhibition success?" "Surreal," I admitted. "A month ago, I was afraid to enter a gallery as a customer. Tonight, people are buying my work from gallery walls." "That's the power of refusing to be diminished," Daniel observed. "You chose to expand rather than contract when faced with criticism." I looked around at my family, my parents examining my work with new respect, Chloe engaging in genuine conversation with other guests about my artistic process. The transformation wasn't complete, but it was real. "Thank you," I said to Daniel, "for intervening that day, for the opportunities, for believing in my work. Thank you for reminding me why I collect art in the first place, to support artists who have something meaningful to say." As I drove home that night, my new painting carefully secured in my car, I reflected on the journey from that confrontational Thursday to this triumphant evening. The path hadn't been easy, establishing boundaries with family, learning to value my own work, accepting opportunities that felt too good to be true. But each step had been necessary. The humiliation in the gallery, the unexpected alliance with Daniel, the honest conversations with my family, the professional opportunities at Morrison Technologies, the ongoing work of maintaining my newfound confidence. My phone buzzed with a text from Chloe. "Proud of you tonight."
Really proud.
"Can we have lunch this week? I'd like to hear more about your work." I smiled, typing back. "I'd love that." Sometimes the moments that feel like endings are actually beginnings. Sometimes when someone tries to make you small, the most powerful response is to grow larger. And sometimes a cruel word in a gallery can lead to the kind of life you never dared imagine possible. The painting I'd bought that day, Sarah Chen's exploration of transformation, hung in my living room as a daily reminder. Under different light, new details emerged, just as new possibilities had emerged from what initially seemed like a devastating encounter. My worth wasn't determined by Chloe's opinion or my parents' approval. It was inherent, evident in my work, and finally recognized by people who mattered, including myself. Have you ever experienced a painful moment that ultimately led to positive change in your life? Sometimes our greatest growth comes wrapped in our most difficult experiences. Remember, your value isn't determined by others' opinions. It's inherent, unchangeable, and absolutely real. Thank you for listening to my story. Until next time, keep creating, keep growing, and keep shining your light, no matter who tries to dim it.